I think the more clarity you have around what it is you want to do, the easier it becomes to find that time. Like, at least that's how it was for me. Like once I realized what was most important to me, then it became a lot easier to take time from the things that weren't. So it's kind of like the is it a no or a hell yes? It has to be a hell yes or it's a no. And I think as you start to begin to figure that out, then just like money, time becomes easier to allocate.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Resolve Riffs. We're welcoming back an old pal from way back in the day, Mr. Justin Castelli. He's here to talk about aligning your spirit, mind, body, and money, so you can live your authentic life. This is the guy who brought you the authentic life. Be you. I remember back in the day sitting in some places, and you had your good Michael Jordan kicks on
Yep, yep.
telling
I s
people to that's probably a lifetime ago for you now as an advisor, talking about living an authentic life and building an authentic practice from that perspective. But what are you up to now?
Yeah, I just it's been an evolution. And you've kind of Mike, you've seen the evolution. You've been a part of those
Mhm.
conversations. I was alluding to our lunches when I used to go down to eat the ETF Exchange conference down in Miami and pinging you and giving you ideas. I think Rodrigo was at one of the lunches as well. I still have my Jordans. I haven't gotten rid of those. Still rock them. And it's funny, like I have different outfits for how I'm feeling for the day. So some days I'm more trendy, other days I'm more sporty. Just depends on what kind of creative move I'm in. So Jordans haven't gone anywhere. It's just been an evolution of kind of continuing to kind of live my authentic life and then learn what that means and then try to help other people live theirs. The last couple of
Yeah,
years have been like pretty big on the growth side.
yeah. Let's take us through the journey for the last couple of years. Let's catch everybody up to where you've been and where you've come.
Yeah. So I mean, from a logistics standpoint, still in Fishers, Indiana, I still have my advisory firm, Arlos Wealth. Like those things are all still a big part. The big difference has been just kind of going through I can't remember the last time we talked, but really the big kind of leap forward personally was my time that I spent at OnRamp and the startup. And you know, going through balancing having Arlos Wealth and taking care of my clients kind of in the first part of the day, shifting over to startup mode in the second part of the day, being a father, and ultimately it was kind of a moment of burnout. And I don't love the word burnout because I didn't have any dramatic event. I didn't have a health scare, but just I realized that I was doing way too much. And that as much fun as being in a startup was, it didn't really align with what I was most interested in and it needed to go. And I had done an exercise thanks to Jason Wank over at Altruist where I planned out my ideal day. And what I realized was that if I took on ramp away, I had my ideal day sitting in front of me. So that was kind of like, all right, if this is what I said I would love to have and restructure my day and it's in front of me, like I have to go do it. Right. And so I ended up leaving on ramp. And that was when I started to align my spirit, mind, and body. And I never really, it wasn't even intentional. It just kind of happened. Mike, you introduced me to John years ago,
Yep.
and that was my introduction to meditation. And so I worked with him for a while and learned about the brain waves and these things. And it kind of took, but it didn't stay with it. And I tried meditating after that and just it never really was able to figure it out. Realizing that there was nothing to figure out. It took me a while to understand that.
Ah,
But once I did and realized there's no right way, I started to meditate. I got back to taking care of myself. One of the things I wasn't doing at OnRamp was working out regularly. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't getting rest. So I got back to taking care of my physical self. And as I started to see these things come together, I just realized how much happier I was and how things were falling into place, and I had this greater clarity of where I was supposed to go. And that was kind of when I first started talking about the alignment of spirit, mind, and body. And then being a financial advisor and that being my whole career, I ultimately connected that, if you have alignment of spirit, mind, and body and understanding of who you really are, which I think you find when you have that alignment, then money kind of takes care of itself. You're better able to align it with your values. You're better able to understand where it needs to go. And then even on bigger picture, I think sometimes money just magically comes your way, or you understand that, hey, all these things I'm trying to do to find happiness, it's really to please other people. And I know who I am and I don't need to do these things. And now I need less money and my financial situation's better off than I thought it was because I was doing all of these things to impress people when that no longer matters because I know who I am and my happiness comes from it from within. So when I started to understand that, that's when I started writing my daily notes. I shifted kind of my podcast to focus more on talking about this idea of life design plus designing the life that you want, pursuing your authentic life. And I won't lie to you and tell you that I have it all figured out. I was talking to somebody today and I'm like, I still feel like I'm in the phase of figuring out exactly how to explain what the authentic life is. I haven't got the right clear message that's kind of like easy to understand right away. So I'm just going to keep on exploring and writing and sharing. And ultimately, those words will come. And along the way, I'll hopefully plant some seeds for some people to realize some things about their life that they would have maybe never understood or understood at a much later point of life.
So, Justin, you mentioned your ideal day when you took all the froth away. You
Hmm.
had an ideal day in front of you. We didn't quite articulate what was that ideal day. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so my ideal day consists of having the mornings to myself to be there with the boys, get them ready for school, drop them off. Like I want to be at home and be a part of the morning routine. Have some time to do my daily writing, get into the office, take care of RLS Wealth clients. But like what I really want to do more and more and more of is having time to create content, to express myself. Like I really have turned into a creator. I think I am a creator who happens to be a life planner slash financial advisor, not a financial advisor slash creator. And it wasn't always that way, but it was creating All About Your Benjamins and starting the podcast and continuing to go that I realized I really enjoy creating and expressing myself in a variety of ways and trying new things. And through that creation and the content, trying to help people. So it's finding more time to create. And one day I think the majority of my time will be centered around writing and podcasting and speaking and video. And then time with clients will be the smaller part as kind of things shift over time. But my ideal day is simple: time to take care of myself, time to be with my family, time to take care of my clients, time to create. And that's really all I want to do.
That's an interesting concept because literally Mike and I were having an internal conversation with some employees about the difference between working to get the operation done, like you
Mhm.
doing your day to day admin and feeling like you worked really, really hard. But then there's a lack of working either on the business or on yourself, right? This
Mhm.
idea of I'm going to create, because establishing value, once you establish value, you have to execute it. And you need to have a tight team to do that. But how do you create additional value? I've always thought you need to create space for yourself on a daily basis
Mhm.
to navel gaze and
Mhm.
really have that. But I think everybody I talk to struggles with that.
Mhm.
What do you say to people that feel like they're too busy to be creative or they're too busy to work on themselves or work out? Like how do you deal with that question, with that barrier?
I think part of the problem might be not really knowing what it is that they want to create or what it is that they really want to how they want to take care of themselves. I think the more clarity you have around what it is you want to do, the easier it becomes to find that time. Like, at least that's how it was for me. Like once I realized what was most important to me, then it became a lot easier to take time from the things that weren't. So it's kind of like the is it a no or a hell yes? It has to be a hell yes or it's a no. And I think as you start to begin to figure that out, then just like money, time becomes easier to allocate. So it might just take a little bit of honesty and self exploration to figure out, okay, what is it that I really want to do? And ultimately, that's what the idea of the authentic life is to figure out what is it that you're supposed to be doing. Like the concept of the authentic life is, I have grown to believe that we were all created to do a certain thing on this world. We all were given unique gifts and talents that no one else has. That we can do something better than anybody else. We can be the Kobe Bryant, we can be the Michael Jordan of something, but we're not necessarily given what that is right away. So part of life is exploring to figure out what that is. And I think one of the best guides we have are our passions and our interests. Like that's how I've operated. Like the reason you look back over my career and you see me wandering all over the place, new podcasts, different themes, like it was me exploring things that were interesting to me. And in the moment, I didn't really know why I wanted to do it, but I was just following that interest, following that call. And that was the guide that led me to all these things to learn to ultimately find where I am today, which I honestly believe. I think that this concept of the authentic life, bringing spirituality, mindfulness, taking care of yourself to finance, I think that's my thing. I think that is the thing that I had to go through all these other experiences to learn. to then be able to bring my own unique way. And I've talked about, I have gifts and talents as a financial advisor, and I'm good at being an advisor, I think. I take really good care of my clients. They seem to enjoy working with me. We've had good outcomes. But if I'm being honest, you can probably pluck somebody else, another financial advisor down, and they can have the same outcomes as I can from the, right capital output, the portfolio output. Like, my skills as a financial advisor are interchangeable. But my skills as a creator and expressing myself, that's where I'm unique. Like, nobody can do the things that I can do as well as I can. And it's more about finding the right setting for me to share those gifts. And that's where I find my lane. So I think the years of creating were to learn how to enjoy myself and figure out what I'm good at, and how to do these things and how to get efficient at it. And then it was finding this concept of the authentic life and aligning spirit, mind, and body. Say, okay, here's where you go create. This is all of that practice was for this topic, and this is where you need to go. And if you look back over the last 2 years, I really haven't deviated from this concept of the authentic life and spirit, mind, and body, other than continuing to explore and go down that path. Previously, it was all over the place learning different things. So to go back to your original question, I think it's getting a better understanding of who you are and what really makes you tick, and then that's where you can find the time. Because if it's not something you're really attached to or emotionally invested in, it's easy to let it go to the side. That's why people, when they have a health scare, that's when they find the time to start working out, because now it's a priority. We had a reason to get to the gym or clean up our diet because we got spooked. Until then, it's yeah, I know I should probably do it, but it's not that important because we haven't had that experience or that emotional attachment to it. So it's finding those things that really make you excited. Then if it's not moving you towards that, then it's easy to set those things aside.
Mike, I can
The
I
old
just ask you a question, Mike?
crisis necessity change.
Yeah, it's always crisis necessity change. I think Mike is a good example of somebody who has always found time for that, especially the spirit and the body. Like you've always I don't think I've ever seen you miss a gym day.
Sure.
I also think you're one of the people that takes advantage of the weekend better than anybody I know. Um, how much of that is planned? Like how much of that came to you naturally? And how much of that was you growing into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, yeah, if you want something done, do it in the morning, right? The workout, I work out in the morning generally, and that's because the puck hasn't dropped and things haven't gone horribly wrong. So, you're not responding to things. So prioritizing those things that are for yourself, right? Put your own air mask on when you're on the plane, then help the person beside you, that sort of thing. Um, I think that I've learned all that though. To be honest, I came across, thinking back on it, I came across when I was in university and I was playing football. I came across a guy who introduced me back then to meditation and to visualization through the avenue of sport. And it was brought to my attention back then that, think about the competitive nature of any landscape that you're in. Um, let's go with sports because it's kind of easier in the sense that, is everyone practicing harder than you? Or are they using better protein powder? Do they have better strategy and schemes? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They probably don't have better supplements or protein powder than you, unless you're cheating. Do you have better durability than them? Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are legendary for being able to have the durability to practice at a level that most can't. So do you have that gift where you actually have the durability to do more? Not everybody has that. But when you think about the idea of meditation and visualization and gaining clarity on some of the things that Justin's talked about, like how do you decide where to go? What do you do? You can run from here to there doing a lot of things, or you can sit and just silence your monkey brain for a little while and see what presents itself, so to speak. So I think it's, it's always nature and nurture, but I think there's a great deal of it that you can actually prioritize and learn, but it does take time. And Justin, although you felt like you learned nothing or you learned some things from that, but couldn't quite get it, in that journey of that first round of meditation, you are always on the journey.
Mhm.
But you were always on a path getting somewhere, and then you'll come back to it later and you're like, oh, here it is. The light goes on all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need a break. But I would say that the thing about the morning and prioritizing the things that you really want to, the self care and things like that, are morning items, at the 5 a.m. type stuff.
Mike, I think you alluded to something that's really important is that, like, we're in society, we're taught to be selfless. And that we think by skipping our workout to see a client or to do something like that, we're being selfless and we're actually doing people a favor, when the reality of it is, when you're not taking care of yourself because you're selfless, it ends up being selfish because you're only giving a fraction of yourself to the people who really need you. And if you just took a little bit of your time to whatever it is you need to do to put yourself feeling the best, whether if it's the working out or if it's the meditation or whatever it might be, if you take that little bit of time and you act a little selfish, you're actually bringing more of yourself to the world and to everybody that cares about, and you're actually doing a better service for them. But for that was one of the things that I had to learn, that, and I think your point, it is a lot of things that have to be learned. I think conversations like this are great because we can put these ideas in front of people for them to hopefully experience it sooner rather than later. But like, no one's going to take what we say today and actually change anything on their own, but they're going to have a moment where something that we talk about registers and the light bulb's going to go off. And then, oh, that's what they're talking about. Let me try this. And once you experience it, that's when you're hooked. Like, that's why I'm so excited about this and, passionate about it, is I know what all this stuff has done for me, and I want other people to experience all of the good that I have experienced that's come from this. So I think that there's that selfish versus selfless. Sometimes we get backwards, and I certainly did.
Yeah, I think Rod, you and I were having this discussion, as you said, with some employees about some things of the idea of, like, we just talked about crisis necessity change, rather than thoughtful introspection, planning, and change. Um, and those, it's hard to complete the latter part if you're not doing the latter part. And it's not one podcast or one set of people talking on a podcast that are going to do it. It's the constant drip of making this a priority. And this is where I'm coming back to some of the discussions we were having earlier today, Rod. It's the constantness of it. The fellow Voss, right? When he talks, the hostage negotiator who's been
Chris Voss.
um, Chris Voss, very popular, but he's a hostage negotiator, but he uses his techniques when he orders a Starbucks coffee. Like, the idea of being mindfulness and centered, and you're always using that, and you're always seeking information that continues to reinforce those behaviors to some degree. That's in the fitness industry. When you're on a path, you're not watching, how to party in Vegas all night. You're kind of like watching, well, how do I do my squat better? Or, so it's a constant journey of reinforcement on some set of um, lifestyle choices that you want to make to some degree.
So Justin, has that been the toughest part, the most challenging part? I certainly would has been for me,
Mhm.
but you know, what has been for you the most challenging part of you searching your authentic self? Has it been that telling people that you're going to be a bit more selfish? If maybe you can expand on that.
The It's not the telling people I'm going to be more selfish. It's actually holding myself to do it.
Hmm.
I'm still, like, as much as I know, so I know exactly what I need to do to be feeling my best. It's getting up and going downstairs in the basement and doing some type of movement, hopping on the Peloton, doing a short tonal workout, getting my meditation in, doing Wim Hof breathing. I go to yoga at 9:30, go do my work day, lift weights in the afternoon. Like, if I do that, that is when I am peak performance, I'm feeling my best. Despite knowing that I don't do that every single day. I I go to bed later because the boys get home from practice late, and I need to get my sleep because sleep is important, and that pushes other things off. So it's not been my accountability to other people directly. It's the accountability to myself that I am going to do these things regularly. And what I've realized is that in order for me, I think, to keep on moving in the direction that I want to go, I need to be the epitome of spirit, mind, and body. And money's still important, but spirit, mind, and body. I need to be the epitome of that. Whether it is like when I'm at a conference, you see me heading out to the beach in the morning to go do my meditation. When the food trucks are out there, you see me eating health. Like it's not, I'm not doing it for show, but you see that I'm living it. Or if you're around me, the energy that's coming off of me is just like this guy is he is what he says he is. And I am that way most of the time, but I could be better. And I want to be better for myself. And I know that if I'm better for myself, then that will be better for what it is I want to help other people do as well. So I just need to get more disciplined and stay with it. But I will tell you that when I notice that I'm falling out of alignment, whether I feel it or I just notice that the energy around me is not where I want it to be, I do prioritize those things. So it's almost like I give myself a band that, okay, if I don't hit yoga every day, but everything else is feeling really good, I'm okay. But if I start to notice things aren't flowing the way I want it to, or my flow has been disrupted, then I'm back to that discipline to pull the alignment back in. And then I give myself some room because I don't want to be a robot either. Like I know these things are important, but I don't want to become, reliant on them all the time to be my best. I want to kind of have some freedom in my life to do the things I know I need to do, but then sometimes if I want to take a break, I can take a break.
Got it. And so when you're created a community and you're looking to impart a lot of those values onto the community, how do you advise people to like pursue their authentic self? Like what are the some tactics that you generally discuss in your groups?
Yeah, so this is going to be where my message is weaker and fails to some of like the big experts out there because I don't believe in absolutes. So I know to have like a lot of success with a message or a method, it's like this is the only way to do it, and you either reflect every people or you attract people. Like I do believe in the alignment of spirit, mind, and body, but where I don't have an absolute is I don't care how you do that. So spirituality is up to the individual. I just think having a connection to a higher power is something that's really, really important. So I encourage you to do that and explore that and do what right feels right for you. Mind is more about being, control of your thoughts, controlling your mind. Our attention is one of the greatest commodities that are out there, and everybody wants to get control of our mind and our attention. And just being mindful of that and being aware of what you're putting into your mind and also what your thoughts are. Like our thoughts really are really powerful and they do create our perception, which creates our reality. So being in control of your mind, trying to be optimistic, finding the silver lining, I think that is very powerful and moving in the direction you want to go. And then however you want to take care of your body, whether it's weights, if it's walking, if it whatever it might be, doing those things. So what I encourage people is to figure out what are the things that you enjoy that feel right to you and then do those. And then the other thing is just I'm a big believer in all of the answers that we seek lie within us. Like we have all of the answers inside of us. And it's getting everything out of the way that's been put into us to find those answers. So really getting in touch with your intuition and trusting it, following your heart's guide. I think that will take you a lot of places you're supposed to go. And like I live it. Like I wrote a daily note today talking about how the last few months I've been in talks with a company to bring RLS Wealth there, join their firm, create content to help grow it. It was the perfect situation. And ultimately, my mind was telling me, do it for all these reasons. And the mind was not wrong. But at the end of the day, my heart told me I had to maintain my independence. Like at this stage of my life, I need to be a free agent. I need to be able to explore the things I want to explore, collaborate with the people I want to collaborate with. And that despite the perfection of this opportunity, it wasn't right for me. And I literally had the conversation with him yesterday, letting him know that. And the deciding factor was my heart. It was how I felt about the situation because on paper it was the perfect opportunity for me to find somewhere to join, bring my clients, still work with them, have them taken care of, be a part of a bigger system that's building what I believe in. But my heart told me it wasn't right. And that's not an easy thing to trust because we live so much in our heads that to like go against what our mind is telling us because it feels a certain way, that's a scary thing to do because we can understand reason, but like understanding a feeling is kind of hard to do. But the more you do it, the more confidence you get in trusting your intuition and listening to your heart. So one of the things I have to figure out is I know I need to figure out a framework of like do these things and like you'll find alignment, but I don't know if there's a uniform framework for everybody to follow. So I just fall back to these kind of broader things of figure out how these things bring you into alignment and notice how you feel, notice how the opportunities come your way, notice how your energy elevates. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. So what we put out is what we attract, and who we surround ourselves can influence that as well. But notice how life changes when you find that alignment, and then trust where you're being called to go, and you'll go in that direction. And I think that things work themselves out. It's almost like it's like it's magical the way it works out if you let it. But it's not always easy to do that, and I have had to slow down where I'm being pulled and what I wanna do because I have a family. Like, what I would be doing today would look a lot different if it were just me. So I have to balance this idea of, okay, there's a calling that I have and something that I really wanna do, but I may not be able to fully do that today because I have a family. And when I look at the calling versus taking care of my family, their happiness, our lifestyle today is more important than that. So let me still move in the direction of that calling. I just have to move a little bit slower. And then if one day things will change, the boys will be out of the house, and if I still feel like I'm called in that direction, I can go a lot harder into it. But I can still move in that way. I can still be true to myself and be authentic to myself, and take care of my family the way that I want to.
Yeah, I think
What do you
intuition is underrated too. Especially the more experience you have in a certain domain, and who has more experience in being you than being you.
Hmm.
Um, but your intuition, you put things on a piece of paper, but at the end of the day, it's the unconscious that really has the capacity to do a lot of um, reasoning beyond the grasp of the reasoning mind. And
Hmm.
I think people should take the time to build rapport with their intuition, um, as it's a very powerful thing. And I think leads to better answers. And not that you shouldn't go through the logical steps of thinking those things through. You should. But at the end of the day, what your intuition tells you is the unconscious mind trying to give you feedback. And when the universe speaks, that you should listen.
And
so
this all gets dismissed as woo woo,
I
Of
was
course.
about to tell you that. Now my question
and
there is, what's the biggest obstacle? Because the first thing that my wife says whenever I bring any of this up is that we don't believe my family just doesn't believe in self-help and woo-woo bullshit.
mhm.
So, how do you, push back against that?
The only pushback I can give is to try to get people to notice the woo woo things that have happened in their life. Because again, back to my early comment, I can't convince people, we can't convince people that the universe gives you signs until they receive a sign and they notice it. So to me, that's why I write my daily notes. It's why I have conversations like this, is just to put my experience out there as one person. And there's a lot of people out there who are sharing these stories, to just allow somebody to connect. Like, one of the universal omens that I have, like The Alchemist is my favorite book. Like,
Great
I
book.
love that story. And I have a tattoo of
Paolo
it.
Coelho,
I
right?
have Yeah, I have a custom piece of art that's influenced by it over here, and I just love it. And the idea of the personal legend to me is very much like the authentic life, but it talks about following the omens. And one of my omens is another tattoo I have now, is the bald eagle. If anybody's followed me on social media, you've seen me talk about bald eagles, and it may not seem like a big deal, but I never saw a bald eagle in the wild until I started to have this alignment of spirit, mind, and body. So Indiana has a bald eagle population. I've lived here my whole life. It wasn't until I was like 38 or 39 that I actually saw a bald eagle in the wild. And so I Googled like the spiritual meaning of a bald eagle, and it's basically a sign from your angels or higher power, telling you you're moving in the right direction. And just to show you how powerful this is, I mentioned the opportunity that I was exploring. As great as it was, and I wasn't looking for the bald eagle to confirm anything, I never saw a bald eagle in the first few months of these conversations. Everything felt right, all these other synchronicities, but no bald eagle. And towards the end of the decision making process, I started to really focus on my value of independence. And I started working with a coach I was telling you guys with. And the first Thursday I met with him, the theme was independence. I want to be able to do what I want to do, when I want to do, how I want to do it. I don't have to answer to anybody but my clients and my family, and just really felt good about that. I saw a bald eagle that evening. I can't make it up. Like, you can go check my social media. There's pictures of it. Like, I saw a bald eagle. The next Tuesday is my next coaching session with him, because we had to move from Thursday. Independence is the theme. That evening, I see another bald eagle. And then the final bald eagle in this trifecta in just a 2-week span, I was driving to Michigan State on fall break with Leo. I was speaking at Michigan State. I was listening to The Alchemist on Spotify on the way up. It was 4 hours to listen to. My drive was 4 hours. I'd never listened to it before. I've read it multiple times. I'm at the point of the book where they're telling Santiago to always follow the omens. And as I'm listening to the story, I'm playing out this journey that I'm on as I listen to the book. Like I can see me in this decision I'm making as I'm Santiago. Like it's a really cool visual I had when I'm driving. And I look off in the distance and I see this big bird and it kind of turns a little bit. And I think its tail is white, but I'm not sure. And Leo's with me. So I'm like, hey, Leo, look out there. That might be a bald eagle. And I kid you not, I turn to look back to the road ahead of me, and a bald eagle flies over us, like to the point where I can see its eyes and its beaks. So I'm at the moment of the book, listen to the omens, and I'm visualizing myself and thinking about independence. And my personal omen flies over us. And I don't have a picture of that one, but I have Leo in the back seat who can vouch for me that the bald eagle flew over. And I would be lying if those bald eagle sightings did not weigh in on confirmation of what my heart was telling me on this big decision that I had. So, like, sure, you can try to dismiss those as that's coincidence and you're making something that's not really there, but I've had it happen way too many times. And for somebody else, it might be a robin or it might be a blue jay or a beetle or whatever it might be. But there are these things that show up that let you know that, hey, you're moving in the right direction. Maybe it's repeating numbers. Like I catch 333 and 444 and 555 on the clock all the time. I don't have an alarm to check it. It just I happen to catch those moments. And to those of us that believe in the universe and signs, those are just little winks of like, hey, you're you're in alignment, you're in flow, you're where you're supposed to be going, things are moving in the right direction. Um, I can't convince somebody to believe in that until they experience that themselves. But I think that if you look back over history, we're not the first ones talking about this. Go read John Templeton. John Templeton has a daily book like of laws. I forget what it's called. And John Templeton was basically talking about spirit, mind, and body and money. I've never heard anybody in finance talk about it. I'll find the book and send it to you guys. You can put it
Yeah.
in the show notes. But
Soros talks about his sore back and selling out of his positions.
yeah, and like
It's not, there's lots of people who talk about the
Al,
manifestations of these things. Go ahead.
Yeah. Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, like it's throughout history. You look at Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Like there, these things have been right in front of us for so long, and they just for whatever they have been deemed as woo or crazy or not real. But there are a lot of people that have subscribed to these things. Bob Proctor. There's a lot of evidence out there that there is some truth to these, and now there's even science. There's a book, it's called Mind Magic or Magic Mind. I think it's Mind Magic that talks about the science of visualization. That part of manifestation is having a strong image and visualization, and that our brain doesn't know the difference between a strong visualization and a real image. So that if you can hold this vision of what your life could be and you can believe in it, then you will naturally begin to do the things and move into that direction. So whether it's this magical being of manifestation or it's just a belief that pulls you in that direction because you see it and you believe it. So now you're taking the actions. Like if you're holding this visualization of you with a six pack and you believe it and you're visualizing it and your mind doesn't know that you don't have a six pack, you're going to start eating healthier. You're going to start embodying that
Yeah.
version of yourself. And then ultimately you're going to have the six pack. So whether it was magic that manifested it or you tricked yourself into doing the things, I don't care what you call it, but it was because your brain believed it and you saw it so much that it pulled you in that direction.
Yeah, it's the idea of assigning a persona to yourself
Mhm.
that you want to aspire to be and saying, "I am that person."
Mhm.
And what does that person act, feel, and do?
Yep.
How does that person, execute their day? And
And
you
there's a
eventually
difference
become that person.
and there's a difference in faking it till you make it and then believing that that is you and embodying that and
That's right.
moving towards it.
It's an exercise towards that belief of that persona. You
Yep.
are a fit person
I
every
think
day when you do it.
I think faking it till you make it it's an external thing. Like fake it till the make it is okay. I don't have $1 million, but I'm gonna buy the watch and buy the clothes that makes it look like it, and then I'm gonna grow into it. But you're doing it from an external standpoint, and chances are you really don't believe it. And if you don't believe it, then you're never going to achieve that status. Versus, okay, if I had $1 million, how would I feel about myself? Like, how would I walk? How would I move? How would I talk? Like, how would I feel? And if you embody it from the inside, to me, I think that's what moves you towards that. And then ultimately, you're doing the things, luck happens, the magic doors open, and then you find yourself in that situation. So I think that, like, I think it's important to understand that when you are visualizing who it is you want to become or what it is you want to accomplish, it starts from the inside, and it's not the fake it till you make it where you present on the outside, because if it doesn't match up on the inside, the outside's not going to bring it there. The inside can bring it, but the outside can't. I don't think.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did want to take a quick second to remind listeners that while we do absolutely love providing our audience with world-class guests and weekly investment insights, we wanted to remind you that we actually do our best work outside of this podcast. And we try to do this by providing cutting-edge, globally diversified, and systematic investment strategies that are designed to be broadly non-correlated to traditional equity and bond portfolios. So we actually manage private and public funds, as well as bespoke, separately managed accounts for investors that seek the potential to smooth out portfolio returns in the long run. So if you do want to see that theory that we've been talking about put into practice, please do go ahead and check us out at investresolve.com. Now back to the podcast.
Okay,
Well,
so
I think you said earlier, the answers lie within,
Right.
and which people will tilt their heads and why is that confusing? Where do you think the answers lie for you, if not within? Somebody
Mhm.
else is going to tell you your authentic life and the things that you should
well, I just don't think
pursue.
people are very introspective, generally speaking. I think there's this concept of letting life happen to you or you happening to life. And most people kinda just let life happen to them. Like, they end up where they end up
I agree.
because they're a billiard ball that got pushed in 1,000 different directions over time, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden, you're an accountant in a cubicle, and you ask yourself, like, is this what life is about?" A lot of it
No
has to do
offense
with
to
our
all the
educational
accountants in cubicles.
No, but if
But
it's
for
your
some
authentic
people,
self,
exactly. For
right,
some people, that is what they're supposed to do.
no judgment,
Exactly.
right? But the point is that I find when you ask people, how have you thought about what you want in life and how are you going to accomplish it? Most people, I was like, I haven't thought about myself in a decade.
Mhm.
Right? Like I had this conversation this weekend. Like I don't have hobbies. I make money, and so that my wife and kids can have a good standard of living, and I'm stuck.
Mhm.
So it really the big break here for I would say 90% of the population, if not more, is how do you get them to start being introspective? And I think that's a really scary thing.
Mhm.
I think it's really scary to wake up and be like, "Well, I can't look at the last 40 years of my life and realize that I haven't done anything that I wanted to do."
Mhm.
Right? So, I think fear is what holds people back, and there's the fear of addressing it, of
Mhm.
recognizing it, and then there's the fear of like, "Well, in order for me to pursue my authentic self, I gotta burn the ships."
Mhm.
Like, that is really scary.
Mhm.
So, walk us through in your experiences of like, have you where are you meeting people? Are you meeting people, like, once they're past the introspection and are ready to take action? Like, are you leading horses to water, or are they already drinking and you're providing them, better mineral water for their experience?
I'd like to think that through my content, I'm leading people to the water. But the folks that I have worked with in Life Design Plus and doing this, like, they're already there and they just know they need help. And some of them are like, "Okay, I know where I wanna go," and other people are like, "I just know there's something more for me." I'm at that like, more money is not gonna make me happy, more fame, more success is not gonna make me happy. Like, I understand that's not it. There's something more in me, and I don't know what it is. And that's where last year I did George Kinder's, Evoke training, the life planning, process. My whole plan was just to go through Evoke and learn the process and kind of cut out and not get the designation. And I fell in love with the process. I'll finish up the designation and I'll actually have my
Tell us a
registered
little
life
bit about
planner.
that. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so George Kinder is like basically the godfather of life planning. And real quick, like, life planning is like, I believe it's a complement to financial planning. It's technically financial life planning, but the focus of life planning is the individual and what it is they want to, like, what is they want their life to look like. And George has 3 questions that are really famous. I think that'll kind of help people understand what life planning is about. The first question is centered around abundance. So you have all the money in the world. You wake up one day, your bank is flush. You're never going to need money again. Like, what would you do? And dream big and have no restrictions. There's nothing off the table, and just start letting yourself go. Because I think so many of us don't even allow ourselves to dream about what it is we would do if money wasn't an issue. And we can't like not have to worry about money, but like if you're at the beginning phases of figuring out what's missing or what do you want to do, just throw money out the table and what would life look like? And I think a lot of us sometimes think our dreams and aspirations are going to be so far gone that we can never really achieve them. But I think most people have reasonable goals in life. Like, you might have one or two people that genuinely wanna be billionaires, but most people don't want $1 billion. They just don't wanna have to worry about money and they wanna struggle. So you can start to back down what we think is gonna be unreal and see that maybe it's not that far away. You just never allowed yourself to dream about it. So that's the first question. Second question kinda starts to get to our mortality. You go to the doctor, you find out you have 3 to 5 years left. In that time period, you won't feel bad, you won't be sick, but you won't know when you're gonna pass. Restructuring your life, what does that look like? And then the final one is really the most important one. You go to the doctor today, you find out today's your last day. What did you not get to do? Who did you not get to become? What was left undone? And like from the life planning process, that is whatever those answers are really what focus a lot of our energy. Because if you're honest and you know what those answers are, then thankfully today's not your last day. How do we make those no longer future regrets? How can we change that so that in the future, if I ask you this question, those aren't your answers, and hopefully you might say, I've done everything I've wanted to do. I've been the person I wanted to be. I can't think of anything. Bronnie Ware wrote a book called The Five Regrets of the Dying, and she was a woman who worked with in
Yeah.
palliative care and worked in hospice, and we're all around all these people in their last days, and they had these five, and I haven't memorized them all, which is a shame. I just know the first one because it's about authentically living. It's I wish I'd have been more true to who I was supposed to be or who I felt I was supposed to be. And there's other ones I wish I would have been a better friend, and but none of them are around money, none of them are about prestige, none of them are about work. It's all these other things that we forget. So those 3 questions I think kind of encapsulate what life planning is about. It's about putting your life that you want to live, what I would call your authentic life, at the center and then building the plan around that to bring that life to become your reality. And then ultimately, part of that becomes the financial plan. Like there's some other things you need to shift. Like you said, you may have to burn the bridges, burn the boats and start from scratch or maybe you don't, but there's things that need to be planned for and obstacles that need to overcome in that play. And then eventually the money comes to it. And that's where I think money solves itself in that when you have a clear vision of the life that you want, you know what's important. So just going back to our conversation about time, now I know where I don't need to allocate my dollars because that doesn't move me towards this authentic life. And now I'm truly aligning my money with the life that I want to live. And we have this beautiful harmony that goes on. And not to say that life is perfect when you do a life plan or if you're living your authentic life. Like there's always going to be ups and downs, but I've just noticed that those ups and downs become a lot easier to navigate when you're operating where you're supposed to be.
But when you
So,
have a why,
yeah, exactly.
things are easy when you know why you're doing them.
Yep. Yep.
So a lot of this, I imagine, a lot of people that are going through this and that are in your circle, I imagine, have families already.
Hmm.
How often do you find that the individual can do it on their own versus having to bring their significant other into the fold and get that person to you know join you in the journey? Do
Hmm.
you find a lot of resistance there?
I mean, ultimately, the partner's got to join the table. Like the authentic life and the plan for that needs to be everybody bought into it. So, like in the evoke planning process, each person goes through answering those questions, and each person gets their own time. So, what ends up happening is you kind of create two individual life plans that need to fit together, and so we're all on the same page. In an ideal world, that's where it flow. Where you can see some of the conflict is with or not conflict, but resistance is if one of the partners is maybe a little bit more into this, maybe a little more connected to their self and the other isn't. Like that was one of my fears as I was going through this personal growth and like elevation of consciousness, if you will. I was afraid that I was going to progress through this understanding and this growth faster than my wife might keep up because she's not necessarily into all the things that I'm into. And I was afraid that there was going to be this gap between us. And that was one of my fears of doing this was that like burning things down, that I was going to somehow ruin my relationship because I was growing in a different way than my wife. And thankfully, I feel like she has been moving up with me. Like, we may not be on the same exact plane, but I think we're close enough that there haven't been any problems. So going back to your question, I think if one person is at a higher level of consciousness, if we want to use that term, and another's not quite there, you might not get the person who's kind of a little bit behind to really dive in and be honest. But what I've noticed is once you get into the process and you start to see light bulbs go off, and more importantly, people connect emotions to the things they want, finding their why, then they start to kind of speed up and catch up a lot faster. So I think the biggest resistance or the biggest obstacle to overcome is just people being able to go to the depths they need to go to really uncover their why. Because the true answer of the answer to the question of why is never the first answer. It's like 5 or 6 iterations further, and then you find out that the reason you want this thing is not because, the original reason. It's something rooted in something you saw when you were a kid. And
Hmm.
then once you connect to that, like, one of my favorite stories from the Evoke training was one of the advisors, like, when you go through this, you have a partner and you actually life plan each other. So instead of role playing and having, half-ass answers just to get through the process, like, you're actually answering honestly. And one of the advisors that went through it with me, long story short, shares that he wants to have a beach house. And going through the process and asking why, getting deeper, he shares with his partner that he wants a beach house because his father never had the opportunity to live out that dream that was his. So his dad wanted a beach house, but his dad didn't live long enough. And then I don't know if he never spoke those words, never made that connection before, but then he broke down and cried, like, lost it. And like, to the power, like, now he knows his why. Like, at first, oh, beach house is nice, be there in the winter, surface level things. But now he knows the real reason for it, and it gives you more of a reason to make that thing happen. So the next day he comes back and tells us how he shared the experience with his wife, and his wife had told him, I didn't know why the beach house was so important to you. Like, why are we waiting looking at it? And the really cool thing is, part of the program is we have our, like, a mentorship for 6 months where we get back together and continue to work on it. And he shared with us towards the end of the mentorship that he and his wife had narrowed it down to two beach houses. So within 6 months' time, he went from thinking that this beach house dream might be 10 years plus out, and maybe a little bit of fear in his mind that he would maybe have the same trajectory of his dad and not even get to live it, to now he might even have the beach house now for all I know.
Mm.
And, like, to me, that is exciting work. If I can help other people have a similar experience for whatever it is they need to because of the life planning process, like, that is really impactful. Like, that's changing lives. It's great to help people get to retirement and fund college and do some cool trips. But if you can help somebody realize a life they never knew was possible, but they always wanted, like, that to me is impact. And going back to John, he had me write out a mission statement, and I had to condense it down to one word, and that one word was impact. So when I think about my ability to impact people's lives, yes, I can do that as a financial advisor. But if I put my life planning hat on and coaching hat, I can have a much bigger impact. And to me, that is really exciting. Um,
So you're actually applying this in your financial planning. Like, are you sitting down with families and saying, "We're gonna deal with the finances, but also, hey, we should deal with this bigger elephant in the room?"
I am not forcing the life planning process on my existing clients because that's not why they came to me. This has been an evolution. I've always asked these questions, but I didn't go through, like, I'm not usually a systems guy. I'm not usually following by the book, but I follow Evoke to the T because I believe in the magic of the way it's been structured. So I'm not forcing it on them, but they know that I want to do it. But I've kind of shifted things that the only clients that I will take on as new clients will be through this life planning relationship. So my first couple clients are actually other financial advisors that we've gone through the life planning practice or the process, but and now we're integrating that version of their self and the life they want into their business. So to make sure that their financial planning practice supports the life that they want to live, and, like, they have authenticity on both fronts. Because what I think happens in our profession as advisors is some of us build great businesses that as we evolve as individuals no longer align with who we are. Because in the early days, you got to pay the bills. So you're taking on clients that maybe aren't the great fit, maybe you don't love, but they need an advisor and you've got mouths to feed. And then you get to a status where, okay, the business is running itself, it's good, and I like the people I work with, but like this line of work or how I'm doing things or how people perceive me is not really true to who I am today. And now I have this kind of disconnect of maybe I'm not being a fraud or being fake, but I'm not being my true authentic self. And if I could start a firm from scratch today, here's how I would do it. So it's kind of like, okay, how do we go from where you are to where you want to be in a way that doesn't blow your firm up and leave your clients stranded and your family struggling, but moves you in a direction that you can be more true to who you want to be today, because I think that allows you to be a better advisor. There's a book called oh, it's something of consciousness. David Hawkins is the author. I'll send it to you. I should know it by heart. It's in my other office, but in it he comes up with, or he has a study. So he's a doctor. He does a study of medical doctors, and he has a way to judge levels of consciousness. And the only difference between these two doctors that he studies is the doctor's consciousness. So they have patients with the same ailments, they give them the same medicines. The difference being one doctor operates from a higher level of consciousness and the other one's at a lower level of consciousness. And after the trial period, the doctor who had the higher level of consciousness, his patients were all cured. And the doctor with lower consciousness, his patients didn't get better. So
Yeah,
the
the
only
map of
difference,
consciousness.
yeah, the map of consciousness is explained. Yeah. It's, I mean, it's amazing. So I just look at that and I'm like, okay, if there's truth to that, and he did a study of it and it's published and I think it's been peer reviewed. If that's true for doctors, then I'm going to make the leap and say that's true for advisors as well. So how can we as an advisors find ourselves operating at a higher level of consciousness? I think being true to who we are and being more authentic to ourselves allows us to be higher level of consciousness, and now we can do even better work for our clients. And I think that that quote unquote better work is less about being more efficient with our portfolios and getting more out of the returns and more about helping clients find what it is they want. That higher energy translates to them, and they see us living that life and that rubs off on them, and now they're more in tune with who they are and what they want, and now we can build real plans that lead them to the life that they want to live. I think traditional financial planning is great, but I think a lot of those financial plans are building lives that people don't really care about. There's no why behind it other than I'm supposed to work till 65. I want to travel then. I want to pay for 4 years of college because that's what we've been programmed to say. And I mean, that all finds its way into someone's life plan, but there's a lot of other things that are a part of it that are way more important. So I look at it as life planning is helping us build a plan towards a life people actually want to live and experience. And traditional financial planning, while not bad, is just living, it's creating a life that somebody may or may not be excited about.
Mm.
And there's a place for both. I think the process is when someone's ready. I don't think somebody can really go through life planning until they're ready. And that's that pain moment, that's that understanding there's something more. There's some type of trigger to where they want to find out, they want to figure out what it is they're supposed to be doing. They want to live that calling. You start with that and then you go do the financial plan. Because if you spend all the time going through the numbers and you create this financial plan that leads to a life they really don't want, once they go through the life planning process, you're going to have to go start from scratch again. So just maybe if it's a new client, you do a real quick assessment, you make sure there's not any glaring holes in insurance, their estate plans up to date, they don't have a lot of debt. Like make sure their finances look like they're pretty strong, and then focus on, okay, what's the life that you want to live that's going to maximize your happiness and bring you the experiences that you want. Let's figure out what that looks like, and then let's figure out how to make that work from a financial standpoint, and then we build the financial plan for that. So I think they go together. But
I like
I
it.
think the future of the profession is the combination. Like I think every firm is going to have life planning one way or another, whether they call it that, whether they do Kinder or Money Quotient or one of the other ones out there. They're going to have a team member or an outsourced member who will help bring this deeper level of planning to the clients who are ready to have that. And I think that from a business growth standpoint, I don't know if that's the point of this podcast, but from a business growth standpoint, if you're helping people live lives that they want to live and having experiences that they've always wanted to have and helping them do that, like that's stuff that people talk about. And if
Absolutely.
if if you're living your best life and doing all the things you wanted to, and your advisor helped you figure out what that was and build a plan to be able to do that, like I want that too. Like make the intro today. Like get me connected with that person. So like my focus going forward is doing the life planning, doing some coaching that goes alongside of that because I enjoy that aspect of it as well, and having a little segment carved out for those advisors that want to do it and then align their practices. And then until I really get to the point where everybody knows what the authentic life is and wants to live that, you know, hold myself out there to help other firms that have a need for life planning but don't have a registered life planner or don't want to send somebody through it. Like, bring me in as your outsourced life planner. I'll come in, I'll take your clients through the process with you right by me. So you're a part of that conversation. You hear all of the whys, you understand it, craft the life plan, go over all the obstacles. And then when that's done, I fade back, you run with the financial plan, and I'm off to do it again. I think there's a lot of firms that are starting to see the value in it, but they don't have the demand for it to where it makes sense to hire somebody or send somebody through the training. So I think there's a cool opportunity to come in and do the work that I really want to do. Um, it's not about building my business up and having a 100 more clients. It's about doing these life planning engagements and helping people really figure out what they want out of life, and whether that's for my firm or for another firm, to me, it doesn't matter. I want to do that work, get more reps in, get better at it. Ultimately, kind of be like a Rick Rubin and just kind of come in and ask the right questions, work my magic, help people create their own hits, and then go back to do it again.
Rick Rubin, the producer. Yeah. The
Yeah, yeah.
magic touch. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's absolutely brilliant because as we get into the more AI space and people, there's
Hmm.
often speculation of how, financial advice is going to go the way of the dodo because everything's going to be automated and we're going to figure it all out. What people fail to understand that are looking at it from the outside is how important it is to have that human touch,
Hmm.
to really connect with your clients. As a financial advisor in the past, I recognized that the relationship I had with my clients was an emotional one. It
Hmm.
wasn't a database one. It was a trust. I remember, when I first started in the business, when it was very young, trying to get advice, trying to get new clients, it'd be a lot of cold calling. And then a year later, I'd ask them, like, how did we meet? Do you remember? And they're
Hmm.
like, I can't remember. I just remember that you were passionate and I thought that you were going to do right by me.
Hmm.
That was the decision making.
Hmm.
And you're as things that used to be of value, like giving me like back in the day, being able to trade cheaply has gone from being able to create a portfolio, has gone into financial planning. This business is going to have to evolve toward the
Hmm.
human things that nobody can replace. And
I
I think
agree.
the work that you're doing is brilliant. I had Mike and I have been in this type of, you know, uh, self-help, always looking at coaching, reading, and trying to improve ourselves. But, connecting that to your business the way you have, I think is fantastic. And, your daily notes are also interesting because I think that's, has that helped you find your way and therefore other people find, like, is that something you would recommend for people to do to find their path?
You don't Yes, I don't necessarily think you have to publish it, but I do think there's value in publishing. Like, the daily notes really are like a public journal.
Yeah.
I'm almost like, so when I write those daily notes, I don't know what I'm gonna write until the day of. So, like, I wake up in the morning and I sit down and write it after Silas gets on the bus. And I write them in like 30 minutes. And when I first started doing it was in the early days of finding my alignment. Like, I would meditate first, and it was almost like I was downloading from my higher power the daily note for that day. And now I just kind of wake up, and whether I meditate or not, the message finds me, and then I just write it. So like, I'm 668 days in a row of writing, and I'm not doing it for the string, but it's a part of my daily routine, and it has helped me kind of process some things. And the cool thing is, like, we'll be able to go look back and say, oh, like, I remember what I was going through at that time. And like, if you go back over the last few months, now that you know this story about me talking to a company, like, you'll see the notes where I am thinking out loud about processing this opportunity in front of me. So I don't know why I feel called to share them, other than I feel called to hit publish every day and put the notes out there. And it's been really cool because, writing every day puts you at a risk of turning people off because you're in their inbox every morning and they kind of get annoyed. And I get my fair share of unsubscribes. And so I have a weekly version where if you don't want to get them every day, I'll send you a weekly note that has all of them in there and like a podcast to share. But like, the feedback I get from time to time just tells me that these daily notes are helping people and resonating with them, and that's all I can help is that write something that I enjoy, that I'm excited about. The only caveat is I want them to be somewhere connected to spirit, mind, body, money, or creativity, and that's kind of where those daily notes land. I have no bigger picture for them. I think it'd be kind of cool to put them together like in a coffee table book one day, rewrite them to make them evergreen, and kind of take out maybe some of the personal sides of it, and have like a Rick Rubin type of book. But that's not necessarily something that I'm actively pursuing. It's just part of my process, part of my way to kind of share my message, plant those seeds, and then see what happens from there.
Fantastic. I love it. So, we're coming up on an hour. I dominated all the questions here. I'm sorry, but this is very interesting stuff. And I'm just curious, where could people like what do you want people to search you for? Like what is the most important thing for you right now and for people to go to your website and look for? There's a
I
few
would
things
just
that you have out there.
Yeah, I would just say if you go to justincastelli.io, that soon, depending on when you watch this, I'm gonna have to update to the justincastelli.com that I own, because I don't know if you guys saw this, like .io might go away.
Oh no.
So, yeah, the .io is for, like, Indian Ocean, like, it's like, like .ca is for Canada.
Yep.
So .io is a domain for an area, and that area was owned by one country because of a treaty, and it's being expired. So long story short, like, that area is going to change ownership, and the .io is supposed to go away. So I own justincastelli.com. So if this is like beyond 2025, it's probably justincastelli.com. But justincastelli.io, and that has everything. It's got my daily notes show up there. You can subscribe to it from there. My podcast, Life Design Plus, is there. And like all I want is to, through those means, encourage people to really like reflect on the life that you're living, and how much of it is what you really want versus how much it is other people have influenced you. And no judgment on if you're living a life that someone else has influenced and that's okay with you. Like, that's fine. I just want people to know, because I don't think a lot of people, back to your point earlier, they don't know how they got to where they are. And you have more agency in your life than you probably realize, and you have more control if you just kind of take back the pen. I did a series of talks last year, and I turned them into spoken word poems, and one of them was "Who's Got the Pen?" And the whole premise of it is who's writing your life story? Are you writing it, or is somebody else? And you can, at any point, you can take the pen back. I actually have pens made that say, "You've got the pen." Like, I can't read it, but you have the pen. And I just want people to be aware that they can take the pen back and they can write their story. And I think ultimately, when you find the path you're supposed to be on, good things happen. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but good things happen, and it leads to a better outcome. And if I take it to the highest level, if I am right and we were all created for a reason, and we all find that reason, and we all live our authentic life, then I think we find ourselves in a perfect world. Everybody's happy, everybody's doing what they're supposed to. We all complement each other. You know, all of the debates and the fights, all those things go away. Now I know that's not possible, but if more of us move in that direction, then at least we can make the world a little bit better, because more of us are doing the things we're supposed to. And we're living happier lives, and we're kinder to each other, and all these good things. So there's a little bit of a altruistic view on what this could lead to if it was possible. And I just think if we move more people that way, it makes the world a little bit better.
Well said.
Amen.
Thank you.
I love it.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys real quick just for having me on and allowing me to have this conversation, because these are the type of conversations that go on at financial planning conferences. It's not what's going on at FPA. Like, these aren't conversations that very many advisors and investment folks are having publicly. But I can tell you there are a lot of us that share the same mindset that the three of us have, because they're hitting me in the DMs.
Mm.
Privately, they're sharing me the books they're reading, but they don't feel confident to share it. And I just think that these are conversations that need to happen, because money touches everything. We're in a position where we can actually help people to find what they want and align their dollars and live better lives. And I think that the stigma of these things being woo over time will go away as we have more conversations like this publicly. So I just want to thank you guys for, deviating from the investments and the other things that we talk about, and having this kind of, bigger picture, more spiritual talk, because I think it's really important.
Yeah. That's why we had you on. The authentic life and being authentic in your real self has been something that you have really been a proponent for since I've known you. So it is absolutely amazing to see the growth and the direction you've taken that. And thank you for coming on. And yeah, everybody out there, have some impact.
Yeah, I love that impact, Justin. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and being so brave about it. I know you don't feel like probably you're brave now, but when you first made that change, I know it was a big shift, from technically oriented financial planner to what you are espousing now. So thank you. We'll definitely have you on again. And everybody that needs to know anything about Justin, it will be in the show notes. And if you have any questions, reach out. He's also on social media, so you can find him everywhere. There's only one Justin Castelli in this world. You can Google him.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Justin.
I did want to take a quick second to remind our listeners that the team works really hard on these podcasts. We spent a lot of hours trying to get the right guests, and we do a lot of prep work to make sure that we're asking the right questions. So if you do have a second, just do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and share with friends if you find what we're doing useful.